and gentlemen, put your hands together for Pastor Alvin Thomas.
I was sitting in the car. I was 17 years old. This happened 20 years ago. And my father, a pastor, had come to Detroit, Michigan to pastor a church here in Madison Heights. And he looked at me and he said, "Alvin, I'm going to India, and I'd like to introduce you to your new wife." I'm 17 years old, and I'm saying, "Dad, I'm not even thinking about marriage. I don't know what you're talking about." Dad said, "Alvin, you haven't even heard what I'm telling you about. You don't even know the girl." I said, "Fine, Dad, what do you want to talk about?" "Well, listen to her. Listen to what I have to say about her." "Okay, fine, Dad. Tell me what you're going to tell me about her." "Well, Alvin, she comes from a very good, financially well-to-do background. She was raised in a good home and a good culture. Unfortunately, they had a lot of property, and her father, who was an alcoholic, drank up all that property. He sold his property and drank it and finally jumped in front of a train and committed suicide." I said, "Dad, I don't want to get married to somebody for compassion reasons. Alvin, she's got a lot of promise, and I really want to be a blessing to her family." Dad had gone to their city and had planted a church there, and Dad really wanted to be of help to that family. I said, "Dad, I am not of the age. I'm 17 years old. I'm not even thinking about marriage." "Okay, Alvin, just think about it. Just think about it." And he went to India. Every year he'd go to India. He was 17 years old when he first told me about Jenny, and at the age of 18, "Alvin, let's go for a car trip again. Get in the car. Alvin, you know that I'm going to India next week. Make sure you be on your best behavior. Make sure you take care of the family. Have you given any thought to what I told you about Jenny?" I said, "Dad, I do not want to get married to someone for compassion reasons." At the age of 19, when Dad got in the car again and he said, "Alvin, let's go on a road trip," I said, "Dad, guess what? I'm already dating someone." I was attending a Bible school here in Southfield, and the first day of class, I really liked a girl, the way she interacted with the teacher. And so I walked her out to the car. My parents raised me to be a gentleman. I walked her out to the car. It was raining outside. I held the umbrella for her. I opened the door for her. We walked outside, and in the night sky, I told Angela, "Angela, I really like you. I'd like to get married to you." She looked at me and she said, "Alvin, here in America, we date each other before we get married." I said, "Hey, Angela, how long would you like for us to date each other?" She said, "Alvin, it's difficult to say. It could be a year. It could be 3 years. It could be 5 years. It's difficult to say." I said, "Okay, Angela, I'm willing to date you. Here are my rules for dating." She is a white, American, Caucasian, Jewish girl living out in Washington Township from a very well-to-do family. I said, "Angela, my rules for dating is we will never hold hands. We will never kiss. We will never get gifts for each other. We will never go on a date alone. If we're going to go someplace, we will always have someone with us. Is that okay with you?" Well, being a very strong Christian girl, she said, "Alvin, that's fine with me." And so we dated each other for a year and a half. I came home that night. I'm raised in an Indian home, and so we never hide anything from our parents. I came home and I told my mom, "Mom, I found the girl that I'm going to marry." My mother's a very quiet, demure kind of a person. When I told her that I found the girl that I was going to marry, she jumped out of bed. She yelled at me. She said, "How dare you find a person for yourself?" I looked at her. Is this the same mother that I've lived with all my life? She was very wild that night. I told my father, and my father was very quiet. The person who's always angry and upset with me, he was very quiet. He had nothing to say. Oh, great. For a year and a half, Angela and I dated, and very, very platonic, very respectful towards each other. Anyhow, a year and a half later, Dad and Angela got a chance to meet each other. They talked to each other, and my father asked her a lot of good questions. "Angela, do you know what Alvin's personality is like? Do you know what makes him angry? Do you know how he would raise his family? How he would raise children? Do you know how he spends his money?" A lot of good questions that we never got around to talking about. Well, suffice it to say that Angela and I parted ways. It was amicable. We didn't have any hard feelings towards each other. She went off to graduate school in Minnesota, and I figured it was God's will. It was meant to be. Soon after that, my parents had made plans to take the whole family to go back to India and visit our grandparents. I loved my grandparents. My grandfather is a fabulous guy. He loves people. He's an extrovert. Before he wakes up and has his morning coffee, he has to make sure he talks to everybody in town. He'd leave the house and he'd go out, stand by the junction, and make sure he talks to everybody. He loved people. I loved my grandparents too. I was excited to go see them. But I was not going to India at the age of 21. If I went to India with my parents, I knew that my parents would try to get me married off quicker than lightning. I was not going to India. And I told my dad that too. I am not going to India. I know what you're going to do. You're going to secretly get me married off. I'm not going to India. That's fine. I respect you, Alvin. You don't have to come to India. So my family had gotten airline tickets, and they're getting ready to go to India. I was going to work and keep myself busy. The only problem is the day before they were to fly out from Detroit, I lost my job. With my tail between my legs, I told my dad, Dad, I lost my job. Excellent. We can go see our grandparents. He got airline tickets, and we as a family are heading to Detroit airport. I made sure that I did not take any suits or ties with me. You are not going to secretly get me married off. I made sure I had casual clothing. There was no way I'm going to go down to the altar in casual clothes. Okay, so there's no way he can get me married off. We get to India. Sunday morning, we're getting ready to attend our church service. My brother, myself, my dad, we're all standing in front of the only mirror in the house. We're shaving. Alvin, if you give your word, I can tell Jenny today that you're willing to get married to her. At that point, I'm like, yeah, whatever, Dad. Whatever you want to do, go for it. I don't care anymore. No, Alvin, you have to give your word. Once you give your word, you know you can't back out, right? You're not going back to America alive if you back out from your word. Fine, Dad, yeah, whatever. No, Alvin, seriously, I'm telling you, you've got to give your word. Fine, I give you my word. We go to church Sunday morning. We see Jenny leading the singing. And afterwards, after service was over, we had lunch together, and Dad said, Alvin, do you give your word for sure? I give my word for sure, Dad. Go ahead and talk to her and do what you need to do. So my parents sat over here, and Jenny's mother and her pastor sat over here. They talked to each other, and then they called Jenny in. Jenny, would you like to get married? And being a very quiet woman that she is, she nodded her head. Excellent, great. So now we're making wedding plans to happen in a week. On Saturday, I'm getting married. It's moving quite fast. So I asked my dad, Dad, is it okay if we date each other? Can I talk to her, get to know her a little bit? Sure, you've given your word. You can talk to her. Somewhere privately? No, you can't do that. You can talk to her privately after the wedding. Okay. So we've got the whole family there, and my dad says, you can take her to that corner there and just talk to her. So the whole family's over here, and I lower my voice, and I'm sitting next to Jenny, and I lower my voice so that no one else over here can hear, and she's not even looking at me. She's got her head down. Jenny, what would you like to do with your life? I don't know. I haven't thought about it. Jenny, what kind of music do you like to listen to? I like to listen to all kinds of music. Oh, gosh. I got in the car and I yelled at my dad. I said, Dad, she doesn't have a mind of her own. You want me to get married to her? Alvin, relax. The day after your marriage, you'll find out whether she has a mind of her own. Boy, was she right. Wednesday evening, we all go together. The two families go together to get wedding clothes. They get a sari for her. I'm going to go to get wedding clothes for me. I want to get an Indian suit. My father wants me to get a cream-colored suit. Jenny wants me to get a black-colored suit. Who's going to win? I came home with a cream-colored suit. I'm screaming and yelling. I am mad. I'm huffing and puffing as I come into the house. There was an American lady that had traveled with us to see India, so she was with us. And as soon as she saw me angry and upset, she asked me, Alvin, what's wrong? I said, it's my wedding, and I can't have anything done my way. I can't even choose the suit of my own choice. My dad gets to choose everything. Oh, isn't that so sweet, Darlene said. What's so sweet about it? Oh, that's just like Jesus. Jesus submitted his will to the Father. That is so not what I wanted to hear. We got married. A week after the wedding, I headed back to the U.S. I'm working 3 jobs to save up money to bring Jenny to the U.S. The only problem is, it was soon after 9/11. I had filed my paperwork in October 2001. Everybody outside of America is now considered a terrorist. So what normally would have taken a 3-month period for a spouse to come to America, it was now taking a year and a half. I contacted everybody that I could. Unfortunately, I didn't know Macomb County officials, or I would have called them. I called Senator Carl Levin's office. I called White House. I called everybody. I'm missing my wife. No response from anyone. Finally, Senator Carl Levin's office called back. They said, Alvin, guess what? Your paperwork is misplaced. They've lost it in Nebraska. What's my paper doing in Nebraska? That's where USCIS's offices are. Okay, so they've lost my paperwork. So I'm making copies of everything and sending my paperwork again. A year and a half later, finally she's cleared to come to America. I go to India so I can let her come with me and we can get on her first airplane ride. It'll be a great experience. I get on that flight. It was a Northwest Airlines flight coming to Detroit. Oh, she was disgusted by everything. She could not stand the smell of anything. The smell of pizza, it made her nauseous. She was struggling. She could not stand anything. She didn't eat anything. I had a double dose of everything on that flight. I was happy. I was such a considerate husband. I was happy. I was full. And I arrived in Detroit. My wife, she was very unhappy. She came to Detroit. She was dizzy and nauseous over everything. My parents were very kind to her. They gave her a nice, good Indian meal. And she was very happy as she's kind of understanding what life in America was all about. I took her to ESL classes. I took her to the library, and we used to rent out a lot of movies. She would teach me about the Indian culture, and I'd watch Indian movies with her. And I would teach her about the American culture and watch English movies with her. It was fun times back in those days. We were pastoring at a church in Warren at the time. I'm kind of fast-forwarding a little bit. Within the first week of her coming to America, I made sure that she enrolled at Macomb Community College. I got her own set of keys to the car. I got her own bank account. She said, "You're my husband. You're supposed to be doing everything for me, right?" I said, "I would like for you to stand on your own 2 feet and take care of things by yourself when you can." So she was doing really well. At Macomb Community College, she's trying to memorize her psychology textbook. I said, "Honey, here in America, we don't memorize anything. You just scan right through it, and whatever you grasp, whatever you understand, just whatever you do, that's fine." Anyhow, she took classes a bit more seriously than I did, and she got an A out of that psychology class. She went to Oakland University, and she graduated with a nursing degree. We were pastoring at a church down in Warren, and we came to a clash right away because at that church, it was a very typical Indian church. In an Indian church, when the older folks are there, the younger ones keep quiet. You don't speak up your mind. You demur, you keep yourself quiet and submissive and let the older ones speak. And so, not as much as Anita, but I tried to speak up for myself. I tried to have a mind of my own. There was a family that came into the church. They were wearing a lot of jewelry, and the elders in the church, they scolded them. "Don't you know this is a Christian church? You shouldn't be wearing your jewelry. You should come in simply into the house of God." Oh my, I was ticked off. Jenny and I, we went to Walmart. We got some simple rings. We showed up to church next Sunday, and I saw that elder, and I said, "Listen, we both got rings. If you've got a problem, you can speak to us, yell at us, do whatever you want, but please don't disrespect somebody that comes to this church." From that point on, it was a clash. It was a clash, and they were not very happy. They wanted to keep the church Indian. Well, 3 years ago, they voted the both of us out. They voted my father and I out. The promise was, as long as you keep this church Indian and you don't have your children in leadership in this church, we will let you continue in this church. If not, we're going to ask you to leave this church. Well, that was great. That was devastating. My dad had taken a church of 25 and had raised it to 250 people. He did a great job in that church. We bought our own building. We had the building nearly paid off. In every sense of the word, I thought he was a success. But I was pissed. I was mad when they voted us out. He was ashamed and humiliated in the Indian community. Our denomination said, "You can take counseling." My father said, "I'm not going for no counseling." Well, I took advantage of counseling. I don't know what it was. Fine, I'll go sit there. I like to talk. So I sat in front of the counselor and I talked. I never heard a word from the counselor. We did this for months. I talked and never heard a word from him. Is this what counseling is all about? But during the counseling, there was a few questions that he asked me. One question he asked me was, "What's your view of God? Is God a micromanager? Does he know every detail in your life? Does he allow every detail in your life? Or did he just create your life and did he go off on vacation and he just said, figure things out for yourself?" Well, my understanding of the Bible was he He knows every detail of my life. Before a hair in my head falls to the ground, he knows. So he allowed all this hurt and pain in my life? Oh, you've got hurts and pains. Tell me more about that. And so I started going back and started sharing some of my stories with the counselor. These are memories that I never shared with anyone. I didn't want to talk to anyone about. I was born in New York City, and back in those days, oh my goodness, I was picked on a lot. They don't understand the word diversity over there. The white kids used to pick on me, and they used to call me the N-word, the nigger, because you've got dark skin. The black kids used to pick on me. They said, you must be white because you don't have nappy hair like us. Any which way you look at it, I got picked on, tripped on in the hallways, and pushed around in the bathrooms. I was not going to escape in New York. So I kept to myself. I sat by the wall and read a book and never talked to anybody. I just kept to myself. At the age of 8, my parents took me and we left New York City and we went to Oklahoma. I don't know what you know about Oklahoma, but I was the only dark-skinned person that they ever seen in their life in my school. In that city, I was the only dark-skinned person. Oh my, I was pinched so much. Every time I told my dad that I was getting picked on, he says, Alvin, no one picks on you here in America for no reason. You must have done something wrong for them to pick on you. One day I got off the bus and my father was parked a little distance away. He watched as the kids pulled my book bag off my back and started chasing me all the way home. They were calling me a nigger all the way till I got home. And my father watched all that, and that was the first time he realized, maybe the kid's telling the truth. I got in the car, and he didn't say one word to me. He just looked at me as if he understood. The next day, he went to school, and he told the principal, and he had a conversation with the principal. The principal said, I'm sorry, sir, there's nothing we can do. Once you're off of school property, there's nothing we can do. Well, that's the end of that. From Oklahoma City, I went to Missouri. Wasn't picked on as much in Missouri, but people didn't like to come talk to someone that's colored. So I kept to myself. I did a lot of reading during my school years. I kept to myself. No one really wanted to be my friend, and that was how life was. Well, at the age of 12, my parents decided to take me to India. Oh, I fought that. I tried my level best, but my parents were not going to listen. We're going to India. They have everything that you have in America in India. And so in order to make life more easy for me, they took cornflakes from America so that we can have it in India. Don't try it. Cornflakes with unpasteurized milk does not taste good. So for the 4 years I was in India, I had a lot of French toast. That was really the only thing that I liked. Breakfast French toast, lunch French toast. That's the only thing that I liked. I will never eat French toast again. That's the only thing my mother found easy and quick to make, and that's what I ate. When I went to school, and the 4 years I was in India, I went to 5 different schools. My dad did make an effort to try to help me to adjust with life in India. I looked like an Indian, but I didn't understand Indian culture. Every time they spoke to me in the Indian language, I didn't understand them. My parents raised me very American here in America. And so when they spoke to me in Malayalam or Hindi, our state or national language, I didn't understand. And listen, you've got to graduate, you've got to pass Malayalam and Hindi in order to graduate from high school. Every time I sat in Malayalam and Hindi class, I was beaten. How come you don't know the language? I don't know, my parents didn't teach me. Well, show me your hand. You got beaten for that. Get out of the class. You don't understand the language. Get out of the class. Yes, teacher. You've got to be respectful towards teachers there. I was very happy when they told me to get out of class. Usually when I got out of class, I'd find myself at the nearest river and I'd be swimming there. They didn't like that. When you get out of class, it wasn't time for vacation. You're supposed to stand outside of class. You're supposed to be humiliated. Well, I didn't understand that. I didn't know that. Thanks for telling me. I got beaten a lot in India. I didn't care anymore. I really didn't care. If people beat me, if people made fun of me, I really didn't care anymore. Then I came back to America. At the age of 16, I came back to America because I needed to finish high school. Took my GED in New York City, in Jamaica. Then lived with my cousins in New Jersey. Got suspended from my Bible school that I went to, the same Bible school in Missouri that my dad went to. I went there, I just didn't care. I took the golf cart. Now, I don't know what you know about Springfield, Missouri. There's nothing exciting there. I stole the golf cart and I went to the nearest Walmart. Newsflash, golf carts are plugged in. Halfway through, it ran out of power. Me and John, we just pushed it off the road, and we left. The next day, as the vice president was suspending me, do you know where we found the golf cart? The bottom of the lake. I didn't know. We were just pushing it off the road. Then 20 years ago, my dad brought us to Michigan, and that's how we came to Michigan. Well, we were at that church, and a lot of hurtful memories. I fought authority. I fought people that wanted to tell me what to do. I did not want to fit into the Indian culture. When I went through this whole experience 3 years ago, it was really hurtful and very painful. But then I found out who my real friends in life were. For 14 years, my wife was by my side. I helped her to put her through school at Oakland University. And after she was done with her schooling, she went to different hospitals. She said, Alvin, you like to talk to people. Why don't you become a chaplain? Well, I'll try it out. Doesn't hurt. Went through my chaplaincy training at Beaumont Hospital, went to Sinai Grace, went to Oakwood. I thrived there. When I was at Sinai Grace, when people were going through trauma, I was always nervous. Would they say anything about my skin color? They didn't care. When they were going through their hurt, it didn't matter if you were Indian or who you were. They didn't care. They enjoyed someone just being with them and praying with them. My children accepted me. I've got a 10-year-old Jacob and 7-year-old Amy, and now I've got an 8-month-old Abigail. They accept me for who I am. They're not telling me what to do. And 3 years ago, I joined the Nations Church, and they accepted me as their pastor. Now the Nations Church is in Shelby Township, and they accepted me as their pastor. They're not telling me what to do. They let me be who I am. And I gave a voice for the young people, and I said, this is not an Indian church. We celebrate diversity. We celebrate different cultures, and this won't be an Indian church. It'll be a church where we love and accept people, and we especially give a voice to the young. That's my story. That's been my journey, and I'm very grateful that Jenny, my family, they're all here tonight, and you probably heard them, Abigail crying. Jenny's back up there. When they turn on the lights, hopefully she'll wave. But that's been my journey, and I'm really grateful that you took time to listen to my story. Thank you, and God bless you.
Pastor Alvin Thomas.